Clemson and SMU in Charlotte for the ACC Championship. There's a lot of mixed feelings about this one, especially when it comes to the Tigers being in the ACC Championship after seemingly failing forward. I know. So I wanted to bring on my buddy TJ from Double Fries, No Slaw, and also the College Football Addiction to talk about the ACC Championship game this weekend with Clemson and SMU. TJ, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, buddy.
So you're a Florida State fan, and I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry about how that season went. But I did hear that you ended up with the Florida Gators flag. They were trying to stay.
Yeah, I went down and snatched it, and it's hanging up in my garage just right. I'll put it up behind us here in a few days, so to add to the wall.
I didn't know if maybe you were going to use it, maybe in the future if there's another pandemic, there's no toilet paper, you can just cut it off as needed,
Maybe spray paint it. And whenever we win next in Gainesville, have the guys plant that back at the center of the Gator head.
Well, I think we've both figured out a great use for that flag. Well, anyway, you're a Florida State fan. You pay attention to college football. What are your thoughts on Clemson, the progression of their season, going in against first-year team in the conference, SMU? I mean, what are you seeing here? What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, Clemson, certainly didn't have the season that I think they wanted to have or expected to have overall. But I will say, they lost to two really, really good SEC teams, right? Georgia coming off of a great year and Georgia playing the toughest strength of schedule. And I know that game was close for a half, then a blowout. So Clemson fans don't want to hear moral victories about that. I get it. But I do think that at the end of the day, they did play a really good team and they lost that game. And then they played a really hot South Carolina team. And I know nobody wants to sugarcoat the losing rivalries or anything like that. But for the most part, they took care of business in the conference. And so I know they lost to Louisville, but they certainly took care of business in the conference better than Miami did. And so they absolutely deserve a spot in the ACC Championship. Now, do I think Miami's season compared to Clemson's season, just overall, who was better? I don't know. It's tough for me to, Miami played nobody with a pulse out of conference. And so it's hard for me to crap on Clemson too much because their losses, again, out of conference, I don't really hold it against them too much, especially when we're considering the ACC Championship. And so them, kind of backdooring their way in. It feels like they're backdooring their way in, but they're really not. The season was the season in totality, and they won more ACC games than Miami did. They didn't get in on a weird tiebreaker or something stupid. So I don't know. I think they're very deserving from that perspective. Did they have the season up to Clemson standards? No, absolutely not. They certainly feel like they should have won the Louisville game and won the South Carolina game. At the end of the day, though, they played better than Miami did in the conference, and they played better than really anybody else did in the conference, with the exception of SMU. And so, yeah, they're very deserving, in my opinion, of a spot there. And because of our new rules, teams that win the ACC can't get left out anymore. Certainly not bitter at this moment still. And so if they can go out and find a way to be the better team for 60 minutes on Saturday, then they'll find themselves in the playoff.
So, TJ, we look at SMU. They're out of the American Conference. First year, Rhett Lashley, this is his third year. The guy can coach, offensive coordinator, quarterback coach for many teams, and now he's running the show for a third year in a row. Do you think this stage gets too big for them? Because Clemson's been there a lot. Cade Klubnik has a conference championship. I mean, he was thrown into the fire to clean up the offense as a true freshman. Do you think that maybe this game kind of gets a little bigger for them than maybe what they're expecting? I mean, what are you looking at in this match?
Yeah, I think there's a chance of that. I also think that the other side of that is, are they just playing with house money at this point? Nobody really expected SMU to be here, right? We all had Miami and Clemson and Florida State at the top. And then who are your upset teams? Maybe Louisville, NC State could sneak in. And then after that was kind of your SMUs, Georgia Techs. They were definitely in a tier 3 of the ACC. And so is there more pressure on them, less pressure on them? Clemson has to win to make the playoff. SMU could sneak in with a second loss. So I don't know. I think it goes both ways. There could be an aspect of the lights are too bright. But there also could be the aspect of like, hey, let's go play lose. This is where it's house money. It's year one in this conference. Like, so I don't know that I think it certainly could go either way there as far as like looking at the game really, really big picture. I don't think I'd say I do think that Clemson should be more comfortable in this game, but SMU has gone out there and played teams like on the road at Louisville. They opened up their ACC schedule with Florida State coming to town. And I know Florida State wasn't good this year, but they didn't blink when any of those things happened. And they went out and they competed. I know Pitt was kind of a dumpster fire late in the year, but they welcomed a top 15-ish team in Pitt to town and absolutely blew their doors off. And so I do think that in the big games, in the big moments, they have played pretty well. And I wouldn't be surprised if they don't flinch at the bright lights. Now, are they the better team? Do they execute better? Obviously, that's a very different question. But I would lean away from thinking the moment's too big for them.
When you have a coach like Rhett Lashlee, the guy has been successful, but he hasn't reached the pinnacle. This is a great chance for him to take one more step towards the pinnacle. Do you see him throwing the kitchen sink in this game to try to knock off the Tigers early on, take control of the game, take the crowd out of it, because Charlotte and Clemson is within 2 hours of one another? Do you see him coming in with an extremely aggressive game plan, or do you think that he tries to keep his team calm and just say, this is our game, this is the way we're going to play? How are you seeing them play out with their scheme, especially offensively? Hey, before we move forward, I just want to stop and tell everybody who's been watching the channel and you've subscribed, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot to me. I'm just a guy talking about his favorite football team and college football. I just want to send a special message to anyone who hasn't subscribed. I look at my analytics all the time, and if most of the people who watch me would subscribe, I would have a ton more subscribers, and it would just help out a channel, an independent like myself. And so I just ask you, if you don't mind, subscribe. If you like what I'm doing, if you like my honesty, if you like me going out on a limb, even if you disagree with me, would you subscribe? It's free. Okay, I appreciate it. I'll let you get back to the video.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be like super conservative by any means. I think Rhett's pretty straightforward, and in interacting with him a few times at ACC kickoff and other things, like I think he is. Now I mean, could there be a trick play here or there? Sure, like I don't know, but I think they're gonna try and line up and just win the game. And does that work for them? I don't know. Like Clemson's obviously got a very good defense, and it would, won't shock me if they're able to kind of limit some of SMU's explosiveness. But I think Rhett is, he's almost just so hard-nosed, old-school football that I don't think he feels like he has to pull out all the stops or whatever, right? I think he thinks, and again, I'm speaking for him, so maybe I'm completely wrong on this, and you get 7 reverse trick plays in the first half. But I think he wants to say, no, we don't need to do all that stuff. We're going to come out and line up and beat you. And if we come out and lose, we're going to come out and so I don't think so. I don't think they'll be super aggressive. I don't think they'll be super conservative. I think they'll just play their game and say like, hey, here's what we need to do to win. We worry about us, we execute, and we'll be fine. Now, if that's going poorly for them in the first half, they go down to the half, down by a couple of scores, maybe that changes the second half. But I think to start the game, they're just going to line up and try and win. And is that a strategy that works? I don't know. But they've won every game they've played this year, with the exception of one where they had to go back and forth between quarterbacks, and ended up being the game they made a quarterback switch in. And obviously BYU was playing really, really good football at the beginning part of the year. I know they tailed off some too at the end, but I think that because of that mindset of, hey, we're just going to go out and play. I mean, that's what they did against Florida State. That's what they did against Louisville. That's what they've done in all the big games they've played this year. And that would be kind of what I expect in this one too.
So looking at Clemson and separating Clemson from who they are now versus what they accomplished, during 16, 17, 18, 15, etc. What concerns you about Clemson going into this game after the season that they've had, but they're in this conference championship game? What concerns you in this game and makes you go, hold on, they have to do this or they can't do that to get this conference championship and then go into the college football playoff?
Yeah, I think they just a finish, right? I thought they drove the ball fairly well on South Carolina this last week. And whether it be a bad call on a pass out of bounds, or whether it be, I didn't like the fumble call that they called. Or when the fumble happened and you could clearly see the running back pitching it back up. Like, I mean, if he's pitching the ball up, he's obviously got possession of it enough to direct it clearly to it. So I don't know whether it was that or fumbles or bad calls, whatever you want to blame it on. At the end of the day, they just got to finish, right? No blocked kicks, which obviously has been a struggle this year. No turnovers down inside of the scoring range and stuff. Like, I thought they outplayed South Carolina by a pretty good margin. And even there late in the game, they had a chance to either tie it up or win the thing. And ESPN's like percentage calculator had even like flipped it back to where Clemson was almost a favorite, trailing by 3. And to me, that's the biggest thing is they've got to stop outplaying people and losing games. And if they can finish, because I do think they'll drive the ball decently. I mean, we talked on my channel about the path to a win and using the freshman wide receivers and the way that Cade is taking what the defense has given him, whether that be with his legs or his arm. They just have to, when they get down there close, the biggest key to me is Clemson's just got to finish things off. And they didn't do that especially well against South Carolina, and it's got to be better this weekend against SMU.
TJ, I always appreciate you coming on the show. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, for Florida State stuff, welcome to check out Double Fries, No Slaw. If you're looking national college football, we just had Brian on to talk a little bit about this ACC Championship. Check out College Football Addiction.
Thanks for coming on. Everybody, go see him, subscribe, and let him know you saw him on my channel. As always, it's great to see you on here.
Thanks, buddy.